Hello, everyone. This is Pam Royster. I'm the Director of Post-Secondary Planning in the Office of Transition Readiness in high schools. And I'm coming to you today to talk a little bit about how JCPS counselors can broker hope via CTE pathways. And I really believe that school counselors have a unique opportunity to be a change agent in students' lives. You really are brokers of hope. That title is with great thought and belief. You can help students work through the traumas that they're experiencing in their lives and connect their dreams to plans and build hope through small wins and personal connections. And I don't think you can do it alone, but I do think you can lead some of this work in your buildings. So what I want to do today is share with you, really I just want to share a lot of information with you. We're going to look at a lot of slides and charts and graphs, and we're just going to scratch the surface. I just want to make sure everyone understands what information is out there. So giving you access to some labor market projections, which are boring to talk about, but could really help kids see potential in themselves and in their futures. And I want to share also like our current state, because it doesn't always look good. And I know there's a lot of challenges to who has access to what, but it's kind of our job as the adults in the world, right? In this sphere to help mitigate some of those challenges. And I want to talk a little bit about how the strengths and challenges in our current programming and really just spark some brainstorming and thoughts about how you can help change our students' lives. And I always like to start with the why and some context, right? Like, why is this an important conversation to have? And yes, the political climate and the unsteadiness of our futures and all that, that's kind of still overhanging our heads. But what has really moved me is this study that I saw back in April of 2016. It's a little dated, but I think it's still current and powerful. And this is one of the graphics from that. What they did is they looked at the course taking patterns of a nationally representative group of students. And they just kind of looked at what kids were taking. And they defined a college-ready curriculum as a student who took 4 ELA courses, 3 math, science, social studies, and 2 world languages. So it sounds a lot like our pre-college curriculum. They defined career-ready course taking as 3 courses in the same field or sector. And so they had to make some judgment calls like, what is health science, like, right? And 3 courses in the same field. And overall, the national sample, 31% of students took a college-ready pathway or set of courses. 13% took a career-ready, 8% had both, 47% had neither. And when we break this down by low socioeconomic and high socioeconomic, resourced and not resourced kiddos, it's even greater. 53% of students in the low socioeconomic status group were what they called meandering through high school. They're just taking classes. There's no clear plan evident by their course taking patterns, which is a problem because they're not obviously setting themselves up. We're not helping them set themselves up for success after high school. Why part 2 is our transition readiness by ethnicity. This comes from the KDE report card from the 18-19 school year. We won't have transition readiness scores published for the 19-20 school year, so this is the best we can do. But I mean, I think this chart speaks for itself, where we have students that are not meeting those transition readiness benchmarks or definitions at the same rate as their peers. And it's disturbing. But again, we're in a unique position to have long-term impacts on the students that we serve. And the last reason, sorry, this is a fuzzy slide, is we have to. It's not very exciting, but we do. We have to look at subgroups based on Perkins 5. So the federal funds that come to support career and technical education is the Carl Perkins Act. And it's gone through its 5th iteration and is being implemented in the coming school year. Our application process this last year, we had to look at subpopulations, not just male and female and racial and ethnic groups, but we also had to look at English language learners, the performance of ECE students, and homeless and those experiencing poverty. So we are trying to level the playing field for all of our students through career and technical education. So what can you do? First of all, I want to introduce you some resources that help you make an informed decision about the programs that you offer in your school. And these are really tough calls. We have short-term predictive labor market information, but the world changes so fast. And the best they can do is 5 years, which barely gets a kid out of high school, let alone high school through post-secondary training. The future job market is so difficult to predict, so we really have to teach our students those adaptability skills. We have teachers in our buildings whose livelihoods are connected to the subjects they teach in the programs that you offer. But the programs you offer might not be providing that market return for students. And we have great teachers in a lot of these programs that we don't want to lose, that make great connections with kids. So it's not just about the program and the pathway that it leads, it's about people. So you have to balance this heart and head decision-making process. But you've got to do it with data, and you've got to do it with concern, and we have to make wise and bold decisions for our students. So let's take a little bit of wandering down about the 5-year projected job market for Jefferson County. And this is the metro area. It's not just Louisville, it's the Louisville and the 5 surrounding counties. And this is the snapshot of those demands. And you can see, kind of take a mental picture of this. It's about 22% business and IT. We have the construction trades, almost 14% in healthcare, almost 13% in manufacturing, 10% in transportation, logistics, and distribution. That's just too much to put on a slide, right? So it says transportation, but it includes those other things. And then we have this other group of regional sector needs. These are things that Louisville needs specifically that might not be the same as the rest of the state, right? This would include things like culinary, public service. This is where ROTC falls in, pre-law, education, and some of those other pathways that don't globally have a need, but there's specific Jefferson County and surrounding. And then the other category is really a lot of entry-level jobs that don't fall into these categories. So that's what the future 5-year projected demand in our community. This is our CTE enrollment. And I think they're all the same colors. Let's go back. Yes, they're all the same color. So you can see a pie wedge that looks kind of sort of evenish, even though BIT's probably one of the bigger and regional needs are both bigger. You go here and we have almost half of our kids are in business and IT services. And I can tell you that of that, it's almost all business, right? We saw 10% that we need in construction, but we have 3.6% in kids enrolled. We have a 10% 5-year need in transportation and logistics, and we have 2% of kids enrolled, right? So we have some skewed enrollment versus what our community needs. So I wanted to share something else with you about labor market needs. So the first 2 slides came from some information that we got from this Kentucky Stats Future Skills Report. And we're going to make these slides available for you to be able to download and take a look at these. And all of these links, we're just going to give you some samples of the documentation that's out there. We've probably shown you these things before, but we wanted to spend some time kind of diving deep. Every example that I'm going to give to you that looks kind of like this comes from our needs assessment report that we had to put out to the community last fall. all the data that we have is in a website, and it's broken down by sector. I'm using the business and IT as an example, but know that all of those sectors that we showed in the previous screen are represented in that website. What we've done is from this KY Future Skills Report, which is the 5-year projections of the demand, we broke it down by sector, by different occupations. And this is a sampling, this is not everybody. We've done the data protocol with you guys on the Future Skills Report, and it's linked at the end of this presentation, where you can actually go in and direct students how to go in and look up different jobs that they might be interested in and see what their projected wage are in fast growth. But we just put it all here in one piece of paper in case you don't have access to be able to get on the internet. Seems weird to say right now, but anyway, so you can see we have a high need, and I've probably pointed this out, we have a high need for accountants. There is the current pool of accountants in the Jefferson County metro area is 4,435. There's a projected demand of 880. So they need to replace people or hire new people at the rate of 880 over the next 5 years. And that's, that's not a bad projected starting wage, right? Or average wage. It's a fast growing. And these two numbers kind of play into each other. So you can see by business, IT, and then this is your media arts, kind of lump them into business and IT. So I'm going to contrast that number with the number of film and video editors. So those would be kiddos who are in a cinematography pathway, which we have about 12,000 students involved, or 1,200 students enrolled in. And there's a projected demand of 4 over the next 5 years. So again, being thoughtful, I'm not saying, okay, like I know the cinematography teachers will be like, she hates cinematography. I don't hate cinematography. I think there are transferable skills that you can learn in a video editing cinematography class that you could apply to other things. And that goes to the whole adaptability process, but you have to go through that thought process of saying, yes, but. Right? You can't just look at the labor market and go solely on the labor market, because that's going to be a changing environment. It is one piece of data that you should be using in addition to some other student interest and those kinds of things. So knowing where the labor market information is, how to access it, and how to use it is your first step. The second step is looking at who is accessing programs and why or how. Are students accessing programs because there's a really cool teacher and everybody wants to be in there? Or are students picking things or not picking things because they don't really identify with that career pathway for some reason, right? So we're going to take a look at who is accessing our CTE programs. And to have some form of comparison, we have to know what our overall high school population looks like, right? So right now, well, last year at least, our high schools were about 50-50 male-female, like very close, very, very close. Like, I don't know, that's probably significant, like statistically, but it's close, right? We also see that we have a racial ethnic makeup that's about 37% Black, 45% white, and 11% Latinx. So just kind of keep those numbers in your brain as we go over here and start looking. Oh, before you do that, well, keep those in your brain, but also know that we are also looking at students with an IEP, at risk, those who qualify for free and reduced lunch, LEP, limited English proficiency, ESL, those are the kiddos who have limited English proficiency and haven't met their WIDA mark or whatever. And then a homeless population as defined by McKinsey-Dinfo. This is what our population looks like in all of JCPS. Then what we did, and again, this is everybody, if you want to see this for your school, you can request it. It may be a part of the principal's agenda that's still being worked out for their principal's retreat this summer. But you can see this is our BIT enrollment. Again, we have it for all of the sectors on our CTE data page. but we have broken down the enrollment in these pathways, and anytime you see something that is red, that it means it is about at least four, I think we use 3 percentage points, 4, maybe it was 5 percentage points away from the overall average. So these little red indicators are highlights that your pathway, or our pathway in the district of all the schools that offer that, were a little out of whack. And you can see these are all your bits, right? These are all your bits. These are all your information technology stuff. This is all your computery stuff. And look, really low on females across the board everywhere. Now, I will say that some of these things, it kind of depends on where the programs are offered. So all of our skilled trades are offered at Iroquois, and they have a higher population of Black and Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx kiddos, right? So they're going to have a higher percentage because that's where it's offered. So sometimes it's just where we have put programs, but a lot of times it's about the access that kids consciously or subconsciously feel about our programs. Again, all that data is available on the CTE webpage. We also looked at a macro level of like all the students who are in BIT. And so we get to these percentages don't look that out of whack from the 37, 40, I've already forgotten, 40, 45, and 11. I think this is 3, right? They're not completely out of whack, but again, we look back here and it's because of this, right? We have much more balance here in the business, which are bigger programs with a little bit more balance. But we see it on the overall. We also looked at male female. This skews because of those IT programs. And we've also looked at it from a perspective of at-risk, IEP, limited English proficiency. So clearly our ESL students, our English language learners rather, are not accessing our CTE BIT programs. And we've got to break that apart and figure that out. Okay, so once you know what the labor market statistics are, you know what your faculty looks like and their pluses, minuses, and challenges, you kind of look at what your enrollment is and you identify where your CTE populations don't match your overall building populations or the overall population of JCPS. It's time to kind of come up with an action plan. And last year, principals were asked to focus in on one pathway and enact a plan. And so I think that's going to happen again. Principals are going to be asked to think about their enrollments, their pathways, and what we can do, like, deeply. A lot of people were like, we can bring in guest speakers, and that's great. Guest speakers are great job experiences, especially when they get to see people who look like them, who are working in the jobs, making sure that we're mindful about what we put in front of students. Like, we're not always putting up a picture of a white female nurse, right? So those are great things, but they're not bold, they're not big enough, and they're not going to enact a change, an opportunity for students. So the last few things I just want to put up here, just again to continue to challenge you to think and hopefully inspire you to some action. This is based on the KDE report card, again from the 18-19 school year, and this is the percent of kids who were career ready by race. And we've already talked about what those breakdowns are, and this is not representative of our overall population. When 55% of our white kids, it's worse if we looked at college ready, right? Our students, all of our students, need to be able to access quality CTE education. And it's not just about career and technical education. That's what I'm here to talk about because that's my job. But I'm also here to talk about the access that we have for kids for college programming. And this is our AP course enrollment and completion by race. Far more of our white kids are accessing AP courses than than we do of African American. And if we looked at these percentage wise, it would be just as bad as the slide I showed before, if not worse. Actually, I thought I wrote down a percentage, but clearly I did not. So this is our first year college GPA by race. And this comes from the KY Stats high school feedback report. And it shows that our white students, when they go off to college, and I believe this is any Kentucky college, so it does not count the kiddos who go out of state. I don't know if we have access to that, right? But we do have, through KY Stats, Kentucky post-secondary institutions. Our white kiddos are earning a 2.46, which, by the way, is really not that great, but it's a whole lot better than 1.78. That's our first year. And yeah, we don't really control that. And we know a lot goes into that calculation in the course performance once a kiddo leaves us. But it's considered by many a proxy of their preparation. So again, I'm just pointing this out and bringing this for your consideration. And hopefully we've given you some things. We've got way more slides that we could share about the disparity among our students and the outcomes of our students. We want to make sure that you know that we have a CTE data page that has all of the information that we collected for our needs assessment. We'll be updating that, I believe, sometime in the fall. I'm not really sure what our timeline is right now, but you can see all of the sector data that I gave you for each of the sectors. You can request your school's enrollment breakdown for career and technical education. I'm hoping there might be maybe 1 or 2 middle school counselors that are listening in today. I think one activity you could do if you have a career exploration class specifically is get them in that future skills report. We've got a protocol for you that shows you how to get to the website and how to talk to anybody, whether it's kids or your SBDM or parents. Show them that tool so they can look at the careers. And it's interactive, so it's like, I'm doing air quotes, fun, but but how do you walk them through that? We've got a little data protocol that can help you do that. In the fall, we're going to be reviewing your pathway options. You're going to be reviewing your pathway options. And it's time to start making some maybe tough decisions about transitioning from a business admin offering to an accounting offering. And I know accounting is like not as sexy as some of the other things, but it's what our community needs. It's a pathway to a livable wage. And I'm not saying let's make kids miserable by being accountants, but let's expose them to those opportunities and give them some of those transferable skills as well. And be bold for your students. This is the time for you to advocate and lead, to create opportunities and align supports. It's both. You can offer classes, you can make them appealing, but some kids are going to need some more support. So knowing where to point kids to get some help. Counselors, I believe, are the chief listening officers in school buildings. So take this opportunity to listen, to learn, and to lead. And with that, I will pause for any questions that might be in the chat box. And I really appreciate you tuning in to this presentation. Thanks.